Have you ever faced someone so aggressive in a conversation that it felt less like a discussion and more like an ambush? Their words cut like knives. Their tone is filled with hostility, and before you realize it, you're caught in a verbal storm. In moments like these, the natural response is to push back or shut down, but neither truly helps. What if, instead of reacting with frustration, you could turn the situation around without losing your cool? The key lies in mastering the art of communication, using calm, strategic responses to disarm aggression and subtly shift the power dynamic. Inspired by timeless wisdom, today we'll explore 6 clever verbal techniques that can help you neutralize hostility, maintain control, and even make an aggressive person rethink their approach. But before we dive in, a quick thank you to all of you who support this channel. Your insights and engagement make these videos possible. If you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with content designed to help you navigate life's toughest interactions. Now, think back to a time when someone's words felt like an attack. Instead of letting their aggression dictate your response, imagine handling it with poise and clarity. These techniques can help you do just that. So let's get started. Number 1. Escape the trap of distorted words. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where your words were completely misinterpreted, twisted into something you never meant? Suddenly, what started as a simple discussion turns into a heated debate, with you being forced to defend a position you never took in the first place. These situations aren't always accidental. Sometimes, they're deliberate attempts to control the narrative and push you into an emotional reaction. When faced with this kind of verbal manipulation, staying composed isn't just a sign of patience. It's a powerful strategy. The ability to remain calm and articulate your thoughts with clarity can prevent you from falling into unnecessary conflicts. Instead of reacting with frustration, a more effective approach is to take a step back and reframe the conversation. The philosophy of Stoicism teaches us that true control isn't about forcing others to see things our way, but about managing our own responses wisely. I recall an incident where a manager introduced an idea to improve workplace efficiency, only to have a resistant team member deliberately misrepresent it. Instead of engaging in a defensive argument, the manager calmly responded, "I see there's some misunderstanding. Let me clarify what I actually meant." With this simple statement, they took back control of the conversation, refusing to let the distortion dictate the discussion. The shift was immediate, the tension diffused, and the discussion moved forward productively. This kind of situation is more common than you might think. People often exaggerate or twist words to provoke an emotional response, hoping to throw you off balance. But when you maintain your composure and respond thoughtfully, you take away their power to manipulate the exchange. I've seen this in everyday interactions as well. A friend once shared an opinion on a controversial issue, only to be met with a sarcastic remark that completely misrepresented their stance. Instead of reacting with frustration, they simply said, "That's an interesting interpretation. I'd love to hear how you arrived at that conclusion." This response shifted the dynamic. It turned an argument into an opportunity for discussion. The way we handle misrepresentation isn't just about defending our words. It's about setting the tone for meaningful conversations. Instead of letting frustration dictate our response, we can choose a different path, one that allows us to maintain our dignity, communicate with purpose, and guide the conversation toward clarity rather than chaos. Next time you face a situation where your words are twisted, remember, staying calm and in control is always the best response. Number 2, respect the truth and avoid creating a straw man. Have you ever been in a conversation where your words were completely misinterpreted turning your original statement into something unrecognizable. It's a frustrating and disorienting experience, often forcing you into a defensive position as you try to untangle what you actually meant. When this happens, the natural reaction is to push back, to correct the distortion forcefully. But does meeting distortion with more argument ever truly resolve the issue? Stoicism teaches us that the real test in these moments isn't proving someone wrong, but maintaining composure and clarity under pressure. Conversations are not competitions. They are opportunities to communicate effectively, even when others seem more interested in provoking than understanding. The way you respond can either escalate the conflict or reshape the dialogue into something more productive. I once saw this unfold in a discussion about a film. A participant shared their view saying, "I felt the protagonist made a lot of selfish choices throughout the story." Instantly, another person fired back, "So, you think the main character is a terrible person and completely irredeemable?" This misrepresentation wasn't just an exaggeration. It was a tactic meant to push the speaker into an unnecessary argument. Instead of taking the bait, the first person responded with a calm and measured approach. "That's not quite what I meant. I just noticed moments where their actions seemed self-centered, though I can understand why others might see it differently. How did you interpret their decisions?" This response did two things. It reaffirmed their point without hostility and redirected the conversation toward a more meaningful exchange instead of a pointless disagreement. Situations like this are common, not just in debates, but in daily interactions. It could happen at work, in social settings, or even at home. Imagine sitting at a family dinner when someone suddenly says, "You always think you know better than everyone else." A defensive response might be to argue against the claim, but a more composed approach would be, "I don't see myself that way. Did I say something that made you feel that way?" This doesn't just de-escalate the situation. It encourages a real conversation rather than a reactive dispute. The ability to respond without being emotionally swayed is a powerful skill. Stoicism reminds us that we cannot control how others choose to interpret our words, but we always control our own reactions. Instead of getting drawn into emotional traps, we can choose to keep our responses clear, steady, and intentional. One of the most effective ways to navigate misrepresentation is through strategic questioning. Instead of engaging in an argument, take a step back and ask yourself, is this discussion about clarity or control? Am I here to prove myself or to guide the conversation towards something constructive? By shifting your focus from reacting to responding, you regain control over the tone and direction of the conversation. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This wisdom is just as relevant in conversation as it is in life. When your words are twisted or taken out of context, don't waste energy trying to fight every distortion. Instead, remain steady, choose your words wisely, and set the tone for meaningful dialogue. In the end, real strength is not found in overpowering others with arguments, but in maintaining self-control, no matter the situation. By mastering this mindset, you not only protect your peace, but also demonstrate a level of wisdom and restraint that naturally earns respect. That is the true power of staying centered in the face of misrepresentation. Number 3, redirecting focus. When a conversation starts spiraling into a cycle of disagreement, tension rises and emotions take over, making it difficult to communicate effectively. Arguments that go in circles rarely lead to resolution. More often than not, they just entrench opposing viewpoints even further. Instead of staying stuck in this pattern, A powerful strategy is to subtly redirect the discussion toward a topic where both sides can engage more constructively. This approach not only helps de-escalate tension, but also fosters a more productive and meaningful exchange. Effective communication is not about proving who is right, but about creating an environment where ideas can be exchanged without hostility. When a discussion turns unproductive, the best course of action is not to push harder, but to steer it in a direction where collaboration is possible. This doesn't mean ignoring the initial disagreement, but rather shifting the focus to a subject that allows for common ground. Imagine two people discussing a controversial topic at a social gathering. As the conversation becomes heated, one person notices that the debate is becoming increasingly personal rather than solution-oriented. Instead of continuing to defend their position, they might say, "I see we have strong opinions on this, but maybe we can explore something we both care about, like the broader impact this issue has on our community." This simple shift in focus moves the discussion away from direct confrontation and toward shared concerns, making it easier to continue the dialogue in a more respectful and constructive manner. One of the key elements of this technique is subtlety. If the shift is too abrupt or forced, it may come across as an attempt to avoid the conversation altogether. The goal is not to dismiss the disagreement, but to find a way to engage in a way that feels less adversarial. This is particularly useful in professional settings, where ongoing collaboration is essential, and heated debates can create unnecessary friction. For example, in a workplace discussion about a divisive company policy, colleagues might find themselves locked in an argument about its fairness. Instead of letting the conversation escalate, one person could say, "I think we both want the best outcome for the team. Maybe we can focus on finding ways to make this policy work more effectively for everyone." This reframing allows both parties to shift from a confrontational stance to a problem-solving mindset. The ability to guide a conversation in this way is a sign of emotional intelligence. It demonstrates patience, strategic thinking, and an understanding of human dynamics. People naturally respond better to discussions that feel collaborative rather than combative. By gently steering the conversation toward a more neutral or constructive topic, you create an opportunity for genuine dialogue rather than a battle of opinions. This technique is also highly effective in personal relationships. Disagreements between family members or partners can quickly become emotionally charged, leading to arguments that accomplish little except causing frustration. Instead of engaging in a prolonged conflict, one person might say, "I know we see this differently, but at the end of the day, we both want what's best for our family. Maybe we can start by focusing on the things we do agree on." This type of response encourages both sides to shift their mindset from opposition to cooperation. Social debates, particularly those surrounding politics, culture, or ethics, often become unproductive when individuals feel personally attacked or misunderstood. In such situations, redirecting the conversation to shared values or broader concerns can help maintain a more civil discussion. A statement like, "It's clear this is an important issue for both of us. Maybe we can talk about what solutions we'd both like to see, even if we differ on how to get there," helps create a more open and thoughtful exchange. At its core, this approach is about recognizing when a discussion is no longer serving its purpose and taking steps to guide it toward a better outcome. Conversations should be about understanding, not just defending positions. The ability to steer discussions in a more positive direction is not about avoiding conflict, but about engaging with others in a way that fosters respect, collaboration, and deeper insight. When you master this skill, you not only become a more effective communicator, but also contribute to more meaningful and impactful conversations in every area of life. Number 4. Handle the storm of questions. Have you ever been asked a question that seemed innocent, but was designed to corner you into a response that didn't fully reflect what you believed? These types of questions often come with hidden assumptions, subtly pushing you toward an answer that fits the asker's perspective rather than your own. They can make you feel defensive, forcing you to justify yourself instead of engaging in a genuine discussion. However, Stoicism teaches us that the real power lies not in the question itself, but in how we choose to respond. Instead of reacting emotionally or falling into the trap of defending yourself, you can take control of the conversation by addressing the assumption behind the question and shifting the discussion toward a more meaningful exchange. I recall a moment at a family gathering when a relative, known for their strong opinions, turned to me and said, "Do you really think spending all that time reading is the best way to live your life?" Beneath the question was an implication that my love for books was a waste of time. A quick or defensive answer could have led to an unnecessary argument about the value of reading. Instead, I chose a different approach. I responded calmly, "I think we all find meaning in different ways. For me, books open up perspectives I might not otherwise encounter. What's something that brings you fulfillment?" This shifted the conversation away from justification and toward a discussion about personal values, creating an opportunity for connection rather than conflict. These kinds of verbal traps aren't limited to family discussions. They appear in everyday interactions as well. I once watched a friend handle a clever sales tactic while shopping. A store employee approached her and asked, "Would you like this dress or that one? I think both would look amazing on you." The assumption was clear. She was expected to buy one. Instead of feeling pressured, she responded with ease, "Thanks for the compliment. I'm still looking around, but I appreciate the suggestions." This allowed her to remain in control of her decision without feeling obligated to make a purchase. Stoicism reminds us that it's not the questions we face, but how we choose to engage with them that truly matters. When confronted with a leading or loaded question, resist the urge to react defensively. Instead, take a moment to assess the underlying message and respond in a way that keeps the conversation balanced and within your control. If someone says, "Don't you think spending so much time on a hobby is unproductive?" rather than rushing to justify your interests, you might respond, "I think hobbies add value in different ways. For me, this is something that helps me relax and grow. What's something you do to unwind?" This response not only affirms your perspective, but also invites a more thoughtful discussion rather than a debate. When faced with questions designed to box you into a narrow response, remember that you always have the power to shape the narrative. Stay true to your beliefs and engage with confidence, without feeling pressured to conform to someone else's framing of the issue. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The same applies to conversations. By responding with clarity and calmness, you demonstrate both resilience and wisdom. You show that your beliefs are not easily shaken and that you navigate discussions on your own terms. That is the essence of true strength. Number 5. Setting boundaries. In any conversation, establishing clear boundaries is essential to maintaining respect and ensuring discussions do not spiral into personal attacks or unproductive arguments. When tensions rise, it's easy for a discussion to become emotionally charged, and without proper limits, one or both parties may resort to aggressive tactics. However, setting firm yet respectful boundaries allows you to steer the interaction in a way that promotes understanding rather than conflict. One of the most effective ways to do this is by calmly asserting what kind of conversation you are willing to have. If someone begins to use hostile language or engages in personal criticism, rather than reacting emotionally, you can take control by addressing the behavior directly, but without aggression. A response like, "I'm happy to have this conversation, but I won't engage in personal attacks. If we're going to discuss this, let's do it with respect," communicates a clear expectation. By doing this, you send a signal that you won't be baited into an argument, but are still open to dialogue if it remains constructive. When you set these boundaries with confidence, the person you're speaking with often recalibrates their approach. People tend to mirror the energy that is presented to them, so if you remain composed and establish limits calmly, it encourages a more respectful interaction. If the person refuses to adjust and continues with hostility, you have every right to disengage. Simply stepping away from the conversation or saying, "This discussion isn't productive right now. Let's revisit it another time," can be a powerful way to remove yourself from an unhelpful situation without fueling the tension further. Mastering this approach requires practice, and one way to refine it is through intentional discussions with trusted friends or colleagues. Engaging in conversations on topics where opinions might differ gives you the opportunity to apply these techniques in a controlled setting. Observing how others react when boundaries are set can also help you fine-tune your ability to assert yourself without escalating the situation. Number 6. Leveraging silence. In conversations, particularly those charged with tension or conflict, silence is often underestimated. Many assume that staying quiet signals weakness or avoidance. But in reality, it is a deliberate and strategic choice. The ability to withhold an immediate response gives you control over both your emotions and the direction of the discussion. Instead of being reactive, you become intentional, shifting the balance of power in a way that can subtly influence the other person's behavior. When faced with hostility or aggression, the instinctive response is often to push back with equal force, to defend, justify, or counter what has been said. However, this can quickly turn an exchange into an argument where neither side is truly listening. A more effective approach is to resist the impulse to react immediately. By pausing and allowing a moment of silence, you create an opening that forces the other person to confront their own words. This technique is particularly effective because it disrupts the expected pattern of interaction. People who speak aggressively often anticipate an immediate reaction. When that reaction does not come, they are left in a moment of uncertainty. They may begin to reflect on whether they have spoken too harshly, reconsider their tone, or even feel compelled to clarify their statement. Without opposition, their own words linger in the air, making them more aware of how they come across. Silence also serves as a tool for maintaining emotional discipline. It allows you to remain composed, giving yourself time to process what has been said before choosing how to respond. Instead of letting emotions dictate your reaction, you gain the upper hand by responding with thoughtfulness and precision. This not only prevents unnecessary escalation, but also commands greater respect, as it demonstrates that you are in full control of your own responses. Beyond its role in handling aggression, silence can also shift the entire mood of a conversation. Imagine someone making a pointed remark designed to provoke you. Rather than immediately engaging, you simply pause, look at them, and let the silence settle. That moment, however brief, often carries more weight than words ever could. The other person may start to feel self-conscious, realizing the impact of what they said. In some cases, they might even retract or soften their words before you even have to respond. This technique is particularly useful in professional settings. If a colleague or superior speaks in a dismissive or confrontational manner, responding with immediate frustration could backfire. Instead, a composed silence followed by a measured response demonstrates both confidence and self-restraint. It signals that you are not easily rattled and that any discussion with you will be handled with intention rather than emotion. In personal relationships, silence can be just as powerful. If a friend or family member is pushing for an argument, refusing to engage immediately can defuse the situation before it escalates. Instead of fueling an emotional exchange, a simple pause before responding forces both parties to reconsider the necessity of the argument itself. What makes silence so effective is that it is not passive. It is an active decision. It is a way of holding space in a conversation without allowing yourself to be manipulated into an unnecessary conflict. By choosing when to speak and when to pause, you gain control over the tempo of the discussion, ensuring that your words, when spoken, carry maximum impact. In a world where people are quick to fill every moment with words, mastering the art of silence can set you apart. It signals wisdom, patience, and a refusal to be easily provoked. When used strategically, it not only prevents escalation, but also shifts the power dynamic in your favor, allowing you to guide conversations toward more thoughtful and constructive outcomes. Which of these ideas stood out to you the most? Have you ever faced a situation where applying these strategies could have changed the outcome? Feel free to share your thoughts. Your insights might help someone going through a similar challenge. If today's discussion gave you a new perspective, consider supporting this content by hitting the like button. It helps spread these ideas to more people who might need them. Don't forget to subscribe so you can continue exploring deeper conversations that bring clarity and growth. Know someone who could benefit from this? Sharing might be the small gesture that makes a big difference. Thank you for being part of this journey. I look forward to seeing you in the next session as we uncover more valuable insights together.